All right, without any further ado, let's get to the first case of tonight. We'll put 2 minutes on the clock and your time starts now. All right, so 2 minutes is up. Good to see some answers come through. Now, this is where it's a tricky one, and really, it's important to read that question very carefully. So the question's asking what additional aspects of history are important to elicit to further assess Michael's condition. Really, what this is asking is what are the bits of information lacking here that actually you need to be able to make a formal diagnosis and to work out the best management plan moving forward. Now, the RACGP has a fantastic section on their website about depression, and so I'd strongly recommend if you haven't already had a read through, have a read through, because you're going to find answers for questions like this taken directly from there. So things like a past history of depression, a family history of depression, a history of other psychiatric disorders, other chronic medical conditions are all going to be your high yield kind of important things here. Then we start to explore what are the other factors that we know tie into risk factors for major depression or other significant mental health disorders. This is things like our low socioeconomic status, previous experience of family violence, experience of child abuse. And if you wanted to really try and tease out and differentiate this from other conditions, we'd be asking about any kind of delusions, hallucinations, any recent weight loss, and any precipitating events leading into it as well. Again, if you haven't had a read through, I would have a look on the RACGP website. And of course, questions on mental health and diagnoses, things like this, you really should be having a look at DSM as well. All right, well done, guys. All right, so without further ado, let's get to the next question. We'll put 2 minutes on the clock and your time starts now. All right, so again, 2 minutes up, and good to see some answers coming through. Let's have a look. So we don't have the full history here, but we do have enough to give us a few leads as to where this could be heading. And of course, the big ticket item here is going to be major depressive disorder or adjustment disorder with depressed mood. Now, if you just put depression, you are not being specific and concise enough. You are not giving the actual full diagnosis. So here we have that 2-month duration that makes it qualify then for the major depressive disorder or major depression diagnosis. Now, if you were again to have just adjustment disorder without the depressed mood, you're probably going to be losing some marks there. So not getting marks. It's still a correct answer and a correct diagnosis, but the focus here is on the depressed mood as being a key part of that diagnosis. Now, of course, there is a bit of vagueness, so you could get away with a mark for other specified or unspecified depressive disorder. Now, I wanted to make a particular point, though, that it's gone out of its way to say he denies any periods of elevation, and that pretty much rules out bipolar 1 or 2. So if you were to try and put that down, you probably need to be thinking elsewhere. All right. Hopefully you've done well. And of course, if you want any further information around the diagnosis, I would strongly recommend checking out DSM-5. All right. Without further ado, let's get to the last question of this case. 2 minutes on the clock, and your time starts now. All right, time is up, and I really wanted to highlight this question here because I think a lot of our knee-jerk reaction when it comes to managing depression in patients with major depression is to jump to medication as the solution here. Of course, if you're not a part of the solution, you are part of the precipitate. A big part of managing depression is actually the non-pharmacological, and I would actually say the most important part is the non-pharmacological. The medication is an adjunct while we're trying to sort out those underlying issues. So really, really important to know this for clinical practice, but of course this is also very, very likely to come up as exam questions as well. Now, of course, the things we all know how to do and do quite well, I think, is referrals to psychologists and the instigation of things like CBT. So whether that's done through a psychologist. Now, if you wanted to, again, really be specific and concise, you should say here, referral to psychologist for cognitive behavioural therapy or appropriate counselling. So having something, a reason as to why you're referring there. And that would get you the 2 marks. If you didn't have that second bit and just had the referral to psychologist, I think you'd probably only actually get 1 mark, so just something to keep in mind. Now, of course, you might also be referring to a e-mental health tool or CBT, and I've fallen into my own trap here again, in terms of avoiding abbreviations. So here I should actually spell out cognitive behavioural therapy, and hopefully you do too. Smoking cessation, we have mentioned here that he is a smoker, and this is something really, really important and we know makes a dramatic difference in terms of managing depression. And of course, the usual things like ensuring there's an adequate diet and oral intake in there, that he's cutting down or preferably cutting out all alcohol, and having that moderate intensity exercise 30 minutes per day, minimum 5 days per week. Also worth exploring sleep hygiene. It's not really specifically mentioned here, but you'd be wanting to make sure you're getting on top of that to make sure that he's actually getting adequate rest in order to make a proper recovery. All right, that is case 1 down, guys. Well done.